So I can understand, this session is between the knowledge and food. So we are beginning with the food for thoughts. And what better than the insurance sector and understanding the best tools available right now? Well, gentlemen, I have already told the audience that I am greedy. Since you gentlemen are around, so we want to understand, the sector's projections. Especially when, country already has a 48 crore odd the Jan Dhan accounts, and with this, the penetration of bank accounts has almost universalized, and every Indian citizen is now connected to a bank account. And next obvious step is to sell him the financial products. And what better than the insurance, life insurance, as well as ensuring the incomes through the products like health insurance and other things. Help us in understanding that when can we expect the universal coverage of. I can start with you, Vineet. Since you deal with the life insurance, when can we expect that every citizen of this country, especially who is earning, he will get the access to the insurance product? Right now, I think the coverage is roughly around 25 crore odd. When can we expect this to happen? And when can we see, the problem which we see in India is that one, the insurance products are very complex to understand, especially from the consumer point of view. Secondly, they are not sold or probably not understood as investment opportunities. How we can, break those barriers, especially, when the bottom of the pyramid, which is just getting access to the banks, and they have a different mindset altogether. So how we can mitigate, those type of risks? Please, sir. Vineet, mic is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for having me here. I think extremely pertinent question on how do we really ensure every citizen of India with a cover. And why is it important to do so is, I think all of us understand that, but maybe just to explain, because protection either in terms of life insurance or in terms of health insurance is something which is really, really mandatory, because if any kind of stress happens on an individual's life, it affects the whole family, right? So a morbidity could affect the whole family, or a mortality could affect the whole family. And that's why it's important that to avoid this financial stress, you need to have an insurance and a protection cover for every citizen in India. I think from a number perspective, there are 2-3 ways that insurance penetration is today looked at. One is as a percentage, premium as a percentage of GDP, then there is a protection gap. So what we don't really look at, and I think you mentioned that number, like a 25 odd CR might be the right number, or maybe close to that, is how many lives have been touched. Like, for example, when you're talking about the Jan Dhan, you're talking about number of accounts opened, right? And so similarly, we should also track how many lives of the working population actually are touched or who have bought an insurance. What my hypothesis is that the penetration in terms of reach, I think, is reasonably there. We can do much better as an industry. I think where we don't really have made a full mark is in terms of amount of sum assured, or amount of insurance that an individual buys. So you might buy a small product, maybe for the ease of the process, maybe for the liquidity available with the customer, or for whatever reason, but it is not adequate enough to cover. So that leaves still the entire protection gap and does not solve the real purpose why insurance was designed and what's to be bought, right? To reduce that entire stress. So that's, I think, one side of the story. Second is that within insurance also we have multiple products. So insurance, just by a common thing, we assume it to be only savings, etc., etc. But now, as the last 20 odd years of 25 years of privatization of insurance, and many new products have got launched, new distribution channels have got evolved. Products right now, starting from a simple term product to focusing a lot more on retirement, annuity, etc., has fully got more and more products have come in, and more can going forward also come in. But these products have got different nuances and for different segments. So if, let's say, I am new and I want to buy my first insurance, my recommendation should be your first insurance should be a term insurance, because that's the real insurance benefit that you want to do from a protection angle. The second is when you are comparing yourself to, let's say, invest some money, creation of wealth. Do I have money to, do savings? And within savings, then I want to create my portfolio. When I'm trying to create a savings portfolio, I will have a portfolio which talks about short term, long term, how much do I want to play the market risk, how much do I want to, put in guaranteed amounts, etc. So that's the portfolio allocation that we want to do. And some allocation of that portfolio should come to insurance, because insurance is the only product which really offers a long term guarantee. Then comes, when you're getting into a phase where your deaccumulation is happening and you want to get into retirement and you need a constant stream of income, is when you look at a constant, let's say, annuity or annuity equivalent products, where you can get an assurance that, post my retirement, this is like a salary which will continue to come into our accounts. So I think these are the three large four segments which are covered by insurance. Yes, we have to work a lot more to get the protection gap closed. Touch many more lives. I think we can go a lot deeper into the country. And to go deeper into the country, you need to pick up simpler products first. And then you need to pick up, more complex products. You need to simplify some processes. What is helping us really go deeper, and I can, now proudly say that, a very large chunk of our business comes from beyond tier 2 cities. And technology has really helped us reach a lot deeper than what, we would have thought of even 5 years back. So I think that's something which is happening greatly, and we should see the results of all these efforts hopefully soon.
Deepu, if I can come to you and help us in understanding that how the modern insurance companies, especially in India, where risk profiles are very different from the rest of the world, are trying to understand the Indian risks and how the products are innovated, especially related to health and other type of occupations. Help us in understanding that if you have to go deeper into the Indian geographies, because this is a common complaint which we hear from many of your, not your, but the consumers, that insurance companies have us straight jacket format, and that doesn't suit. And that also keeps many of the consumers away from the insurance. So help us in understanding that how you are bridging this knowledge gap.
Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for asking that question. I think it helps us, demystify, this perception in consumers' minds. So when you talk about, innovating products, there are two things we can do. One is expand the scope of universe of insurance. So for example, when, if you just look at the history of insurance, the biggest form of insurance many years ago, in fact, centuries ago, was marine insurance. Because at that time, the main form of transport was shipping. Once you had the automobile insurance, the biggest form of insurance morphed from marine insurance to motor insurance, because that became the major mode of transportation. And today, given that we are leading increasingly digital lives, right, cyber insurance could be the next frontier. So for example, we launched cyber insurance linked products, some years ago. Similarly, we saw recently, that, for example, you have a lot of double income, no kids couples, but a lot of them have pets. So then we launched, pet insurance, right? There is insurance for spectacles, right? There are insurance for mobile covers. So how do you increase, the coverage of insurance? So that's one way by which you increase penetration, because you expand the scope of insurance. It's like people are using more products, you become more contemporaneous, and you offer insurance there. The other is on the existing products. How do you do it? So for example, let's take during COVID, right? When you had this hybrid model, you're working from home and working from office. You're not using your car every day, right? So why would you want to pay insurance for the full year? So then we launched pay as you go. So depending on how you use your car, you pay the premium. The other is, to the point that we've been hearing through the day, right? Strong India story. You have a lot of Indians today, who aspire to, treatment globally. So for example, we have a health product, right? Where it's global, right? You can get treatment, outside. The other is, today when you look at insurance covers, let's say health insurance, typically you would think of hospitalization. But you also spend money on OPD, right? When you go, right? There are covers for OPD today. So whether it's new products or whether it's enhancing the scope of coverage of existing products, right? And I'm talking about products which are already live. These are not, on the anvil for launch, let's say in coming years. So these are ways by which, we can penetrate further and deeper into the Indian market.
Deepu, if I can stay with you, you have talked about many of the urban phenomena. The common criticism of the agriculture-oriented insurance is that, the structure of this is like what we find in the Western world where, the land forms are bigger. So most of the insurance company does is that they take the block, the insurance payments and the payouts is dependent on the what is happening in the entire block. But India is a mixed agriculture economy. In my neighborhood, somebody would be growing something else. The impact of same hailstorm will be different on the two different crops. But innovation is not there to understand that particular farmer's issue. And that is keeping many of the farmers away from, the insurance. Although the government of India as well as various state government is pushing farmers to have insurance. But year after year, we see that governments have to still shell out more money to compensate many of those things. Do you think that investments are not being made by many of the insurance companies to understand these type of ground problems, or do you think it's still a very small economy, to deal with? What is the view like?
Yeah. No, again, I need to thank you for asking me this question, because every question is an opportunity to, dispel some, misgivings or, wrong perceptions. So firstly, if you look at crop insurance, it's one of the 4 prominent lines of insurance, in India. It's very significant, whether it's motor, health, property, and crop or agricultural insurance. And this is an area where you see everybody participating. You see public-private partnerships. The government participates, and so do, insurers. And there are mandates, right? It's done at a state level, right? And that's how, the whole landscape is structured. And of course, there are variations, right? There are some formulas given by some governments, and it varies from government to government. Now, to your point on innovation, and I think sometime back we read, right, and it was a pleasant surprise to us, that today there are more internet users in rural India as compared to urban India. So we've leveraged that, and you'll be surprised to know that some of our most widely adopted digital innovations, have happened in the space of agriculture insurance. And I'll give you 2 examples. So what happened during COVID, right? I go back to COVID because that was the point of inflection for adoption at scale, right? You had farmers sitting at home, and they didn't have access to any information because there is no organized marketplace. So we launched an app exclusively in Indian languages, because obviously you can't use English in rural India, right? Most apps tend to be in English, exclusively in Indian languages. So using this app, they got notifications. They could get information about the weather, about pricing fluctuations, and a lot of other information. And thereby, they could continue to be in touch with, the world at large. And because of that, they were able to sustain. And if you look today, for example, claim registrations, we've launched voice bots. And we've seen penetration levels close to 100%, because they just have to use the bot in their language and register the claim. So if you look at crop insurance today, whether it's from the government perspective or from the private, point of view, it's one of the most digitally savvy forms of insurance.
Thank you, Dipu. Vineet, of the life insurance point of view, there is a common belief in many of us is that our lifestyles are changing, and I'm sure the medical faculty is already tracking the changes in the health scenario. Do you also track the changes in the lifestyles, people's lifespan, understanding of health, the investments into the health sector? What sort of understanding life insurance companies develop in this?
So there are multiple stages. One is, you could study your own portfolio to figure out how the trends are happening. The other is, there's a lot of interaction which happens with reinsurer who bring in a lot of global data, Indian data, to talk about how they are seeing the trends happening. And then there are obviously, a lot of research and technology which is moving into the entire medtech space, etc. So there are various inputs that, we do get. I think the question is saying that how are these trends moving, and that's what your this thing would be. So I think we have seen over the last, decade or so that it's happening every decade, but I'm saying the life expectancy is going up. And it's going up for 2-3 reasons. One is, because, we're becoming more and more aware. As we become more and more aware, we are able to, and we are getting better access to medical facilities. So both these things combined increases the lifespan, because you are able to go to a medical facility much earlier before let's say the entire issue becomes serious. And you are able to maybe cure it and prevent it, or, have a better lifestyle to sustain it. So that's definitely going up, and it's happening across the world, not just in India. And in India also, we are seeing this shift happening. So, plus I think what we are also seeing is a lot of use and declaration about preventive and wellness being a theme, because whenever we do sessions with our customers, whenever we try to do awareness sessions, etc., there's a lot of involvement and think about how do I prevent, how do I stay healthier, how do I what are the things that I should do every day to keep a lifestyle which is much more healthy. So those questions are increasing, which means the entire population, etc., is going more and more health conscious, and that's really helping us.
So
as a
what
country as
does
well.
this conversation, this impact, I'm sure, would be happening in your boardroom meetings also, that this trend is changing, and many of the companies have already deployed artificial intelligence to map many of these changes. So what sort of changes are there in your boardroom meetings to understand or maybe innovate new tools? Because people are adopting new, not only food habits, but also the way they used to conduct in a pre-COVID world, their lifestyle. So they want to live healthier. They are moving to different parts of the country. They are traveling lesser, or they're traveling in a very different mode altogether. So what sort of these type of changes impact the conversation in the boardroom?
So from a very life insurance perspective, because it's a very long-term business, you have to do 2-3 stages, for your business. One is clearly how do you really classify and assess the risk when the policy is being written, which means what is the health status of the person who wants to buy a policy, and how does that look today. I think that has moved significantly with technology, because you were able to do an assessment which was earlier purely physical medical driven. Now a lot of video based assessment happens, a lot of at home tests can happen. You really hardly need to go to the clinic for a test now for an insurance, so a lot of this is video based or at home, or with one single sample you are able to do multiple things, etc. So it's become much easier for you to cross that entire medical piece and assess the risk. And this risk assessment is maybe better than what we were doing earlier, because now a lot more data is also available in terms of assessing it. Second is, once you assess the risk, are you, then encouraging the customers to maintain a better lifestyle, and over a period of time, how this trend will grow. So I think these are the things which will, over a period of time, have small things like, how much am I traveling, how much am I doing this, can impact, but the smaller, few years of your life is not something that, we would really want to focus on. That might be more of a health insurance
Deepu, if I can
challenge.
take this conversation to you, in the health side, especially in the Ayushman Bharat segment, government is talking about, clubbing the data, which my health data with the insurance companies. Do you think this will also impact the premiums as well as the understanding of many of the insurance companies about the health of the consumers and their innovations? What is your view on this?
Yeah. See, there are two dimensions there, and I'm glad you raised this question. One thing we need to understand is that insurance is a push product. Like you said, people don't wake up in the morning thinking, I'm going to have a bad day, right? So, and you need insurance for a rainy day. So it is basically sold through conversations. And I'm touching upon this because you spoke about the government, right? Now, the biggest form of distributors can be governments. Today, you see a lot of governments are offering universal health coverage. And this election season, you see a lot of manifestos today where they promise, health insurance coverage. So that clearly shows that when the government gets into the act, adoption happens at scale. So that is the first dimension when you spoke about, governments getting in. Now, the second is when it comes to data, right, and the impact. One, of course, is privacy. We need to keep, privacy in mind, because health data is extremely sensitive. So even as you enroll, I think from a consumer side as well, there is wariness. And similarly, when you get adoption at scale, you need to ensure that you have the right guardrails, because it's easy to get excited, but how do you ensure that you get the maximum out of it while maintaining privacy? That is the second dimension. The third thing is, of course, as you start to metricize your health much more, and to the point that even Vineet made, that when you shift from curing to prevention, definitely it's going to, impact, consumers, as well as their lifestyles. Because what we are also seeing increasingly is the demand is shifting from curative to preventive. And that is precisely, where metrics come in. So whether it is usage of variables, how can we, for example, get data from that, and then, factor in those parameters into our policies. I'll just give you one example and close this point. In the US, there's a platform. So what they do, because they take data, when customers use variables, they take data and they coalesce that data and share it in an aggregated manner with insurance companies. And then they, using this data, come out with products. So these products are real time. And without this aggregator, this shift cannot happen. So we see the same thing, likely to happen in the Indian context.
And now, I want to prick your minds on LIC. The largest player in the market went public. So what does this mean for the industry? Now we know this company a little bit better than what we used to. Does it make any difference to the lives of the competitors? How do you see, the LIC's disinvestment?
I think that's more of Vinit Street because he's in that industry.
So I think any kind of listing and any kind of disinvestment at a philosophy level creates more transparency. And more transparency is good for the company, is good for overall the economy, especially when it's a large institution like that, which is going through, listing and has become more transparent. So I see it as a big positive for the industry. I don't see it as anything else, because as more and more large players, in fact, as we should become larger, and because insurance companies are holding public money, I think more transparency is helpful for the industry, and it will help, make the industry stronger.
So now we are almost into a year. You can tell us that what sort of benefits it has given, no? So you can list 1, 2, 3, 4. That
So
these are the knowledge which you have gained.
No, so I think I will not really comment on LIC in particular, but at an industry level, I think because you're asking questions about LIC, a lot of analysts cover that as a stock as well. There is an element that brings a lot of discipline internally, and the organizations also then understand that there are some focus areas which are brought in. So overall, I think any kind of transparency, people knowing more about what is happening inside an organization is always helpful. And when it happens with a large player, it's always good for the industry. So there is no way that this will not be a good move for the industry. I think it's a great move, and it will help increase penetration. It will help take us to the next level in insurance.
Deepu, you want to make some comments?
I'll just take a slightly broader angle there. I think the whole idea of insurance industry is it's a huge provider of funds to various entities in the financial ecosystem. And the other is insurance is a huge generator of employment. Apart from the workforce in the industry, there's a huge distribution network. So from that perspective, as a huge provider of employment and as a huge source of funds, insurance plays a significant role. And the other is, just going a little beyond, insurance itself, right? So for example, we have bank guarantees, right? Similarly, you have insurance, right? We came out with surety bonds some time back. So I think if you add all of this, I think the role of insurance on the financial ecosystem is huge, and it's only set to rise.
Thank you. Thank you. May we open the floor for some of the questions? We only have 2 to 3 minutes. So, gentlemen at the end.
So my question is to Vinit, sir. When we know that insurance penetration is quite low in our country compared to other foreign countries, why don't the government take a step and say that whenever you go for a loan, you must have insurance as an attachment? This gives a kind of risk mitigate to the banks to maintain the delinquency in the uncertainties, and at the same time our penetration as well as the security from customer point of view get increased.
Vinit, you want to?
Yeah. So I think
Why I'm asking this because whenever we see that we are selling a loan, we see that insurance has not been taken in a positive way. You are pushing this product unnecessary and increasing a burden on the cost of a loan to the customers.
And when you talk about loan, that is personal loan, right?
No, not personal loan, mortgage loan.
Okay.
It's a consumer's loan, basically,
Consumer loan.
auto loan, everything.
See, as a sane financial planning, if one has a loan or a liability which is dependent on that individual, one must take an insurance. I think from a simple logic of financial planning, one must take an insurance. Now, whether that needs to be pushed, made mandatory, whether that needs to be encouraged, I think those are the various, points where somebody needs to really draw the line on how it needs to happen. I think a push always creates some kind of negative references. So it's always better that people understand what they're buying, why they are buying, and what is the benefit that they're going to get. I think that's important that they need to understand. And that's the process of interaction when, let's say, your team members or anybody is talking to the customer while the loan is being sold to the customer or he's buying the loan, that, why is it important for him to cover that loan? And how does it impact his family if, something was to go wrong? And the amount of the insurance cover on top of that loan is very, very small. So I think some of those aspects are things that need to be really explained to the customer well. And then I think, attachment of your loan on this thing will help the bank as well as help the customer as well.
When will cashless become seamless And will health insurance premiums for senior citizens ever come down?
Okay. So to the first point on cashless, there has been a huge move by the General Insurance Council of India to, basically increase, the cashless, percentage. And we are seeing it rising now because of the, concerted effort, by the industry. But the industry wants it to be cashless, so they're working with, all the insurance companies have come together and they're working with hospitals, to make it seamless. Secondly, coming to pricing for senior citizens, insurance is basically a risk-reward equation, right? Well, from a consumer's perspective, consumers would, obviously want a premium as low as possible. Insurance companies also need to, factor in risks because it is a crowdsourcing business, right? You take premium from many and you pay claims to a few. So that is where, the whole equation lies. And the other thing which we may need to keep in mind is, we've done some studies, right? Insurance premiums in India, are amongst, the lowest globally. I'll give you an example from a different industry. Take the cost of a Mercedes-Benz. It doesn't vary much between Germany and India because of taxes. But you look at the cost of insurance in Germany, significant multiple over India.
So both of you explained the products and the planning very well. I wish I had the relationship managers like you. So
It'll
my
be very
question-
expensive. Huh?
Yeah. So that's what I'm making inexpensive. So the same thing can go to AI and all your 10,000, 20,000 people can start speaking the same language, what you are speaking. So my question is, how do you see the AI to augment this kind of relationship managers? I'll see all your staff speaking the same language as you're speaking with AI.
I think this is AI, especially as Gen AI is evolving now, is going to really help us augment a lot of interactions with the customer. Whether it's on the servicing side, whether it's on the sales side, whether it's on the nudging side, it's going to help us augment a lot of that. And I don't really have any doubts that 5 years from now, you will have assistants available to pitch the right product, which is more suitable for the customer, and explain also why it is more suitable. Like for all these examples, why does the customer need to buy? And those prompts might be driven by a lot of data analytics and a lot of data work which is happening at the back end. So I have no doubts about it. I think if your question is, do you see Gen AI solving some of these problems? I definitely see Gen AI solving a lot of these problems.
So I know, a lot of you have questions in mind, but problem is that we are sitting between knowledge and food. So lunch is served outside. So I really want to thank these two gentlemen for the insights you have given. Thank you very much.